Look at this video with me. Some 12 hours after the blast, you see that? That smoldering wreckage is what's left of the fertilizer plant. Investigators say there's no sign of a crime at this point, and teams are on site evaluating the chemical hazard. Now, the community of some 3,000 people is about 110 kilometers south of Dallas. Concussions from the blast were heard and felt as far as 80 kilometers away. About half the town is evacuated, with hundreds of residents in shock and, let's face it, with nowhere to live. West only has a handful of volunteer firemen, and at least 3 are missing. Rescuers are still looking for survivors who could be trapped. The big question, just how massive was this blast? Frederica Whitfield shows us through the lens of people who were nearby.
At the time, all anyone knew was that a major fire had erupted in the night sky over the tiny town of West Texas. This young man was just yards away from the scene.
I was sitting in my truck, and then boom.
Blew the kids on the ground. We were able to cover one, and then I grabbed my little one and dove through the door. It was like a bomb. It like picked you up. It just took your breath away.
Just fire everywhere and just bodies on the ground, bloody bodies, people in panic. Firemen, fire trucks, police cars filled the town.
The blast, so powerful, so catastrophic, homes blocks away were heavily damaged or flattened altogether. In the middle of the night, the town was simply overwhelmed. People flooded the streets. A nearby nursing home evacuated.
I thought, what happened? I'm breathing, so I'm good. And that's when survival kicked in and said, just get out.
The town's emergency services director, himself injured and bloodied, among the first responders.
Overwhelmed. Trying to do the best I can. Of course, they're trying to sit me down because I'm bleeding. I said I got a job to do. There's people hurt more than me.
Frederica Whitfield, CNN, Atlanta.
People described it as totally overwhelming, and that last man you saw is also the medical director of the nursing home, which he then had to evacuate. The West Fertilizer Co said it had more than 24,000 kilos of anhydrous ammonia at the facility. That causes rapid dehydration and severe burns if it combines with water in the human body. Victims need to be hydrated with water for at least 15 minutes. The substance is a gas used to make fertilizer. It's made up of nitrogen and hydrogen. Loose vapors move toward the ground, increasing the risk for exposure. Senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen explains the exposure risks.
If you breathe in a high enough concentration of it, it can kill you very, very quickly. Now, hopefully what happened here was that the wind and the weather conditions made it dissipate. And so hopefully these people were breathing in lower concentrations and hopefully got to fresh air quickly. If these people got out of there, got to fresher air, breathed in lower concentrations, we know some of them had eye irritation, they may have had nose or throat irritation, but hopefully nothing worse than that. If that's all it is, they're not going to suffer long-lasting effect.
Well, early reports from authorities indicate that most of the injured were hurt by the blast, not by inhaling fumes. The weather is also a factor in the Texas rescue and recovery effort. I want to bring in meteorologist Tom Sater now at the International Weather Center. Tom, what are conditions like right now?
Well, they're still going to be looking at strong winds, Aisha, and this could pretty much cause some problems with firefighters. If there's any embers that are still burning somewhat, it could help fan the flames. But to set the stage, this was the weather map for last night. At 7:50 p.m. local time is when they had the explosion. Tornadoes and tornado warnings were just to the north on the border. This could have been disastrous with a natural event as well as the explosion. Strong winds ahead of that front out of one direction, and now the winds are coming in from the northwest. This played a critical role, as well as the amount of rainfall that they were able to pick up. So to set the stage and give you an idea of exactly what we're looking at, where this is, here's the fertilizer plant. Dallas is to the north, and we have, of course, Austin down to the south. You get a little bit closer, these strong southwest winds ahead of the front were actually taking that toxic cloud, that ammonia cloud, and carrying it away from the community of West, home of 3,000. The northwest winds back behind the front also taking that, could have been that plume of ammonia cloud, and now carrying it away into the prairies and some of the farmlands well to the east and the eastern prairies of Texas. All very good news. The best news of all, firefighters that were battling this, of course, many of them volunteers coming from around the area, had the help of the rainfall. Texas, known for its dry conditions in several towns, several communities, 14 millimeters fell in 1 hour's time early in the morning between 6 and 7 a.m., helping the firefighters, of course, dampen these blazes. Here's the problem we're going to be watching now. Because that front was so strong and vigorous, the winds are still going to be kicking up even to around the noon hour tomorrow. They'll be watching this quickly as they continue to call this a search and rescue mission.
Yeah, we'll all be watching this very, very closely. Tom Saylor there at the International Weather Center. Tom, thank you. The other big story we are watching very closely for you today, the Boston Marathon bombings. As investigators sift through the crime scene, we have new information about photos of two men near the marathon finish line. Yesterday, officials described those men as possible suspects, but did not release those photos to the public. Today, the investigation appears to be taking a turn, as Deborah Ferrick tells us.